A very busy weekend in the sports world, NFL, Major League Baseball playoffs, and of course the first weekend of the NHL schedule. We'll talk about some of the games and some of the teams that have jumped out to pretty good records and teams that have struggled in the first less than a week. Russ, start with the pre-show.
Yeah, so our own Ty Anderson pointed out something yesterday, very valid on Twitter, and that was, even if you're a baseball fan, it's hard to find these games on television, and it is. So let's say you're a cord cutter. Well, if you're a cord cutter, you don't get TBS. You're probably not getting TBS on Hulu. I don't know if you're getting MLB on any other service. Mm-hmm. So that's one consideration that MLB should probably look at in the future if they want to keep their ratings up, because TBS is not the most widely watched channel, other than it's on regular cable, but not a lot of people have regular cable anymore. So that's one thing. The times are crazy, we know that. And then even their own promotion of it is awful. I mean, awful to the point where, I didn't even know what the time of some of the games, and then I would see a tweet from like the team's own Twitter account, not like MLB at TBS, not TBS, not anything. And I just feel like unless you're a fan of that particular team and zoned into that series, good luck finding some of these games.
Well, it's funny because Friday night's game, Yankees-Twins, was on the MLB network. And the place that I was at on Friday, I was bowling because I'm in a bowling league.
Yes, we all know it's well publicized.
I'm not embarrassed by that fact. But they had DirecTV and didn't have a package that included the MLB network.
Right.
So I had to listen to, in between my great strike throws, I had to listen to John Sterling and Susan Waldman on the At Bat app.
So you're in New York and you couldn't even watch the Yankees,
right? Because it wasn't on TBS, and it wasn't, and Yes doesn't carry it because the
right.
TBS and the MLB have exclusivity for the game. Plus, honestly, it's like, I mean, that game when I was listening to it was great on TV when I eventually got back home, and because it was Costas doing the play-by-play, and he's great. Of course, he took a lot of heat for some reason that people thought. Everybody knows he's a Yankee fan going back to his teenage years.
Right.
But he's right down the middle, and
he is.
It was like the Joe Buck thing. Everybody thinks Joe Buck is against their team when he's not against anybody, which I can't stand. But Jeff Francoeur and Ernie Johnson and some of the announcers, I mean, really have a lot.
They need to get out of that TBS deal. This reminds me of when the NHL had Sportsnet America, and Sports Channel America, and I moved down to Virginia that year, and I was there for like almost 3 years, and I couldn't get the Stanley Cup because it was on Sports Channel America, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and that's why I'm lucky that I'm in a border town where we always could pick up Hockey Night in Canada. Otherwise, I would have been in the same boat as you. Honestly, it was. It's tough because the games are all over the place. It's nice when you have like one-stop shopping and it's on Fox for the World Series and you know where it's going to be. But it's terrible. And Saturday the game was on Fox. But I was up in Toronto covering the Leafs-Habs game, and they couldn't find the game I had somebody in the media room. I said, they're watching CFL football, and that's all fine and good. It's like, I want to watch the playoff game, and they're flipping around. They can't find it.
I know. See, this is now a problem. And again, just to show you, and then we'll get off this, how bad a job I think the commissioner's doing. And God, could he be worse than Selig? He might be. You can't move the Oakland A's to Las Vegas. For one thing, you had a very good point. Las Vegas is too damn hot. The other thing, unless you're having a dome, they don't have enough fans in Las Vegas to show up for baseball. They don't show up for AAA, and they're not going to magically show up for Major League Baseball. That's all. That's all I got.
Yeah. All right, let's get started. There's a lot of hockey to talk about.
Yep.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2019.
I'm Peter Tessier in balmy Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen in balmy Glassboro. It's about 80 degrees.
And I'm Michael Lagello in rainy Buffalo, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, there are too many games that have been going on, and I thought it was a good idea to just look at the standings through 2 or 3 games and see some of the teams that sort of jumped out to early good records, and some that have really stunk up the joint early on. But I wanted to touch on a couple things. One, because we have Peter here, the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they had the disadvantage of starting. Now it was 3 road games, correct? 3.
Yeah, 4. They play Pittsburgh tomorrow night.
Okay, but 3 in the New York metropolitan area against the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders, and then Pittsburgh before coming home. That's a tough nut. Now they're 1-2.
Yeah,
given up. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, but it's a nut. You got to prepare for everything. You're eventually going to play every team eventually. Like, there's no excuse there.
I will say this, though. It's hard to prepare. Like, when I saw you getting chided on Twitter, like, your team is literally down 4 defensemen from last year's lineup, right?
Yeah.
So, and you couldn't prepare for what Buffalo was going to do. That's impossible to prepare for. You knew Trouba was leaving. That's fine. But not all these things were things you could prepare for. And so now – they're in a spot because Carl Dahlstrom is now like a mainstay in your defense. You now have 3 questionable defensemen every night for the foreseeable future. And with Morrissey out, that made it that much worse and more amplified. And to be honest, short of a trade at the deadline, they're not going to be able to make a trade now. So if any team person screaming for a trade now, it's not going to happen. The only thing they could do is score more offense. They have offense. They need to use it a lot more. And this could be the pushing out of Paul Maurice if all of a sudden they go 1-6, 1-7, and they're just not scoring enough goals. He had 10 goals, but I think this could be a problem for Maurice.
So, you know what? It should be a problem. But Maurice was on record as saying this before this road trip. He said, we won't be practicing during the road trip. We'll be doing our regular skates, but we won't be working on anything. You are missing Myers, Trouba, and Sherratt, who are all left the team. Bufflin is on hiatus, let's say. You just lost Morrissey in the pregame skate, and your best defenseman is an 18-year-old rookie in his 3rd NHL game. That is the state of the Winnipeg Jets defense.
Yeah, and
that's not Maurice's fault.
I don't know if you mentioned.
No, but he should practice.
But yeah,
I don't know if you mentioned Beaulieu, but Beaulieu was out too. So
Beaulieu was out too.
Even
I put a tweet out. I said, "Is it wrong to long for Nathan Beaulieu?" Like I put that out last night. That's the state of affairs on the Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
Neil Pionk is not just a work in progress. He is a long-term project.
I told you.
Yeah, and Russ, you said this the day after that trade went down. You were saying it at the draft too. We talked about it at the draft.
Yeah.
Tucker Poolman is the 2nd best defenseman on the team, and he basically missed an entire season with 3 concussions last year at the AHL level.
Yeah.
Dmitry Kulikov, he did things last night that I didn't think were actually possible for a veteran to do, but and a medium age veteran, not a 38-year-old senior citizen. This is a train wreck. And Paul Maurice, whether it's fair to him or not, he has to figure out how to get the cars back on the rails, right, and what needs to happen. If that means they're going at 20 miles an hour instead of 50, that's what they have to do. Therefore, you have to change your transition game, your zone exit game, and your forwards have to adjust.
That's basically what I was getting at. He's got to change his entire way of doing it.
He's got to do it. And it starts now. It doesn't start in a week when we get home, we have some practice time. It starts at the arena today. It starts in a conference room at the hotel you're staying at, and working on things and positioning and taping out a mini rink in that boardroom or wherever you are.
Guys don't need to play the Xbox an hour early. Your season's on the line now.
Yeah. I mean, 2 points in October is worth the same as 2 points at the end of March.
I mean,
and there's no time to wait here.
Honestly, Peter, what I think they need to do is, almost almost like playing playoff style hockey in October. Have everybody come back. Have everybody have a 5-man defensive situation. You can't. I mean, ideally, when your defense is good, you have the ability to jump into the offensive attack and take chances. You can't do that right now when you've given up 14 goals in 3 games. You got to take care of your own end. And if you win games 2-1, you win games 2-1. At least you're winning them.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Laurent Brossoit was actually very good last night.
Mm-hmm.
Like Russ, I know you were watching the game. It could have been 8-1.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's how bad it was.
He's not bad at all.
And a credit to him. This is a team that is going to have to employ some tactics that maybe aren't going to make the Patrick Laines of the world happy, the Kyle Connors happy. Connor actually had some grade A chances last night, and I think, in 2 weeks he buries half of those, given where he was shooting from. He's out of sync. But you're going to have to do that because it's either your job or their unhappiness. And would you rather them being unhappy being in close games or then unhappy being blown out every night? Because then they're going to turn on you really fast.
Here's the part that I have to sort of switch up with Laine. Even though he may be a top or second liner, I've got to now double shift Blake Wheeler because he can play defense as a forward. I've got to use every little bit like that to help out my sagging defense. So Laine's going to get less ice time right now while we're struggling.
Now, okay, another team that I think a lot of people picked. I know one person that didn't pick them to make the playoffs, and I think that was Zach. But a lot of people picked to make the playoffs was the San Jose Sharks. Mm-hmm. And I think they felt the absence of Evander Kane because they're 0-3 to start the season. They lost both ends of the home and home with Vegas, then lost 3-1 on Saturday to Anaheim. I mean, Russ, I think it's still the concern here more than anything is the goaltending of Martin Jones and whether he can have at least a decent year, because I think everything sort of rides on him.
Yeah, I think the Martin Jones experiment is over. I do. I think you can no longer hope for him to do better. And so now you're going to have to play Aaron Dell more, and you're going to have to scour the wire, or you're just going to have to do a straight tandem here and see how that works out for a while, because Martin Jones cannot play as much as he's playing anymore because he's just not good enough. He's not good enough, and this team can't fall behind. They're a veteran team. They do miss Evander Kane. There's no question he's an important asset for them physically, skating-wise, size-wise. But it's not enough. Martin Jones is killing them. He had an offseason to get this straight. He didn't. So now, they've got to look elsewhere. They've got to figure it out.
Now, Peter, some people in the chat are saying, they missed Pavelski, and I think that I thought that they were great. They were going to.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying.
Right, but they do have enough firepower on that team. I mean, with Kane out, maybe they don't, but with Kane in there, I think they have enough offense. Plus, they generate a lot of offense from their blue line. It's a question of whether they can keep the puck out of the net. And right now, I mean, okay, their goals against average through 3 games, so this is not panic mode, but it's 4. And that's not most teams that have a 4 goals against are not going to win most of their games.
But they've only scored 3 goals.
Right.
That's their biggest problem is they, and they're coming out of the gate cold, so it's easy to pick on them. They're a veteran team. I think they'll get through this. But now, honestly, I got to play Aaron Dell more until I could figure out something with Jones, because Jones now probably is going to be the backup in my eyes.
Okay, the other team that's a little surprising, I think all of us picked them to finish in the top 3 in the Central Division. It was the Dallas Stars. They're 0-3, the last game being a 4-goal performance by Anthony Mantha, who was one of the NHL's top 3 stars of the week. 4-goal performance. They beat Dallas 4-3. Russ, there's no big injuries here. This is the team that most people thought was going to have a lot of success. It's only a week. It's only 3 games, but not the start you'd like to get off to.
No, I mean, look, Mantha had a career game, so there's not much you could do in that game. You wipe it out. The one thing I'll say about that game is this is why I never wanted to trade Anthony Mantha and why I was so vehemently against it over the summer. They need him. He's a player that's got upside. Now you can see the upside. Getting past that, Dallas has 6 goals, only 9 against. This is a minor hiccup. Montgomery will figure this out. This isn't a big deal. I think this is just they have to get things straight, and they got stung in a game where a guy had a career performance. So I'm not getting crazy about that.
Peter?
Yeah, I don't think it's this is I don't even know what to think. They've got to do something, and we've identified this problem for a while, and that's where do you go? You can rotate back and forth, but it doesn't mean you're going to find any success. You've got to adjust something else as well.
That's fine. And Montgomery will do that.
Now, in the West, 3 teams have started out 0-2. I think 3 teams that we had mixed opinions on, Arizona, Vancouver, and Minnesota. Now, I thought Minnesota was going to be the bottom dweller in the Central. Arizona, I thought would be a little better, Russ, but again, I'm not really optimistic about them. And again, their goaltending situation is awful and continues to be like very puzzling when it comes to just guys continuing to get injured. And when you have to go to Adin Hill every year.
Yeah.
It's like when you're going into your 4th and 5th, it's one thing that Vegas, early on in their first year when they had to go 5 deep, it was just, and Philadelphia the last year with the 8 goaltenders. I mean, that happens, but it's like a once in a decade type of thing. With Arizona, this is chronic. This is every year. They lose their starter, they lose their backup. They're going into going to Tucson or wherever their AHL team is for those goaltenders. And you wake up and it's December and you're 20 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, but here's the problem though, and it's easy to say, well, they ran into the hot goalie against Halak. That's fine, but I'm going to look at where their time is being given, right? So, as an example, we look at Derek Stepan played 21 minutes. 21 minutes. I'm not sure Derek Stepan was playing 21 minutes for the New York Rangers when he was a much younger player. So, to me, that's a little crazy. Kessel now playing 18 minutes. He had 5 shots. That's fine. I mean,
he'll get in shape pretty quick then.
Yeah. I think it's a little high for him. And on the low side, they had Connor Garland only in for 10. Now, I get he's not the most offensively responsible, and I think that's the part that Tocchet's really going to struggle for here because, again, there's this yin and yang. You want to have offensive players on your team, but you want them to be at least responsible in your own end, and sometimes that's hard to pull off. And they have a lot of guys that can't pull it off right now. And so they're not going to get a ton of ice time, and that's what Tocchet's going to lower guys' ice time based on that. But again, Coyotes have scored 1 goal in 2 games. Now, they went up against Gibson and Halak. Gibson, I get. Halak is very good. He's not great. Let's not make him out to be something he's not, but he's had a resurgence. We all know that. But if I start looking at this lineup, right, the biggest problem on defense is when you get past OEL, there's not a lot of offensive push other than
Maybe Goligoski.
Goligoski and what Chychrun might give you. That's it. Demers, Osterley, Yarmulson, none of those guys are good puck movers or good offensive guys, right? So you're not going to get a ton from your blue line. So now I look at the regular lineup, and it's like, all right, Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller, Hinostroza, Richardson, Dvorak, Soderberg, Christian Fisher's okay, Lawson Krause, Phil Kessel, and Connor Garland. So of all those players, I can identify 2 star players, Keller and Kessel. That's it. The rest are not stars. The rest are like B's and C's. And where's the goal scoring going to come from on this team? Seriously.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're trying to operate in a sort of offense by committee type of thing with, Schmaltz and Dvorak. They hope the guys Schmaltz, Dvorak, and score 15 to 20 goals, and they have 3 or 4 guys like that and have balanced scoring. But most teams that are successful, they have 1 or 2 guys who can pop 30 to 35. I mean, it's you can't
have like 3. To me, you got to have 3 guys that I know can score 20 or more goals. They don't have that.
Right. Now Vancouver, they start with the back-to-back in Alberta. They lose to Edmonton to start the season. They get shut out by Calgary. I think that's just a tough early schedule, but this is a team that's, if they make the playoffs, it's probably going to be third in the Pacific, or I don't know. I don't think that a wild card team is coming out of the Pacific. Minnesota, same story. Lose to Nashville and Colorado, 2 tough teams in their division, but only 2 goals in each of those 2 games, and offense is going to be a concern for Minnesota, Russ.
Okay. Yes, offense is a concern for Minnesota. One more concern about the Coyotes. So we've identified they're lacking stars in their lineup, but they only have $3 million worth of cap space. Maybe they shouldn't have eaten so many of these bad contracts. It's not helping them. They turned it into more draft picks. They haven't turned it into enough useful players. Do you see what I mean about this whole thing? It's just that this whole formula is not working for them. As far as Minnesota, yeah, they feel, I saw some interviews, they feel like they could get some more offense. Maybe they can. Guys like Parise would definitely have to step up. Mm-hmm. They are a team that is going to have to play perfect hockey to win games. It's not even Devin Dubnyk's fault anymore because he's a good goalie, but he could only do so much. So it's going to be hard for them to have a good season. It just is.
Now, switching to the positive in the West, and then we'll go to the East. Colorado starts off 2-0. St. Louis is 1-0-1. They're playing in Toronto tonight, so that should be an interesting contest. Right. Vegas is 2-0 with the 2 wins over San Jose. But then the 2 surprises. One, I think both of them are sort of fool's gold, if you ask me. Anaheim at 2-0 and Edmonton at 2-0. Edmonton opens up against Vancouver. They win by a goal. And then I saw so much crowing online regarding their 6-5 victory over LA, who, by the way, who I may remind people is purported to be the worst team in the NHL. So when you're David
trading goals with them, it's not like you shut them out. Yeah,
and then I read a column this morning by David Staples, and I know this is a job for a columnist.
Yeah,
to stir up stuff. When you're saying that Leon Draisaitl, who, don't get me wrong, he is a great player, but Leon Draisaitl, who's a number 2 behind McDavid and benefits from the fact that he either plays on McDavid's wing or has McDavid taking top checkers away from him, is better than Austin Matthews. That shows you're delusional.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all-around game, it's not fair to say. Obviously, Matthews has a much better all-around game, and he's pretty close to him offensively. He could be better than him this year offensively. He might get more goals. So
he stays healthy, yes.
Right. So, I'll leave that alone. As far as what I saw from Edmonton is a lot of Hockey Night in Canada early crowing about Mike Smith's puck skills, but yet Mike Smith is still giving up a lot of goals. So, end of the day, don't be so excited that you're trading goals and just narrowly got out of that game with the Kings because you kept losing the lead in that game. To me, that's, and again, that's not a Tippett game. Tippett does not want 6-5 games, but he's going to get some of those because he doesn't have enough players on the blue line and defensive forwards to really play the Tippett system.
Tippett has a full head of hair right now. At the end of the year, he's going to look like this.
Yeah,
because I mean, it'll drive him crazy. Yeah, there you go. I have more than you, and that's not saying much.
No, it's not saying much.
but no, that's not the thing that they want to do. And now with Adam Larson out for 2 months and their defense, I don't think their defense is as bad as the situation with Winnipeg, but you're talking about Chris Russell moving up and playing major minutes. That's not a good thing for the Oilers.
No.
I think there'll be a correction here coming pretty soon. Now, switching to the East, let's start with the bad. The expected bad of Ottawa being 0-2, not shocking. The 0-2 of Columbus may be shocking to Eck, not shocking to us.
Anybody else?
Yeah, because honestly, I saw them. I saw a full game of the Blue Jackets playing against the Leafs. It was men against boys. I think they could not beat Frederik Andersen. Andersen had a really good game. Now I'm not saying
that -8 already.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the Jackets are bereft of talent, because they do have talent. I am questioning the goaltending a little bit. I didn't think Korpisalo was particularly strong against Toronto. They have a really good defense, but I think it's going to take guys like Bemstrom a little time to sort of get into the swing of things in the NHL. And you're putting more responsibilities on the Josh Andersons and the Boone Jenners to carry offense that they didn't need to before, because they had Panarin, and for a time they had Duchesne doing that. And that's where I think this team is going to struggle, Russ.
Yeah, they're going to struggle. I mean, they don't have enough scoring. They don't have enough goaltending. We'll see. This is going to test Torts. This is going to be the great test of the calmer, new John Tortorella, the new and improved, because I can't imagine, if he's still doing this after 10 games, that he's going to remain calm.
No, I don't think it's going to last. I mean, but the thing is, he may have come into the season with those expectations in terms of this team struggling. So not to say he accepts it, but if his job is not on the line, and I think it would be unfair if he is the scapegoat for this, because this was a organizational decision to do what they did last season, to go all out, to make the playoffs and to try to make a run when they were not in a position to be what I thought was a legitimate and realistic Stanley Cup contender. And now they're reaping the rewards, because now they don't have Panarin, they don't have Bobrovsky, they don't have Duchesne, they don't have Dzingel, and all they replaced it with in terms of free agents was they signed Gustav Nyquist.
Well, and they've been scratching Sonny Milano the first couple of games too. You need offense.
Yeah.
Put the kid in. Forget about the defensive end of things. At least a couple of years ago, he was scoring goals for you. He could score goals again, but he is not going to play a perfect defensive game. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's against Tortorella's ethic to start a guy like Milano, who's a a very good one zone player. And I saw him in the minors last year. I thought he played really well. I thought he was at the point where I think he would be an effective NHLer.
He could skate and he could score.
Now,
and he plays great defense, no, and he does play a little physical at times. Like, give the kid a break, man, because you need the offense. Period.
Now, Pittsburgh, Islanders, and Florida all 1-1. Pittsburgh has to be concerned based on the injuries incurred in their most recent game on the weekend, with Malkin getting hurt, and there was another serious injury. But I'm drawing a blank right now. But let's focus on Malkin. If Malkin is hurt, he didn't practice today. If he's hurt significantly, this is going to be trouble for the Penguins.
There's no question. We don't really seem to have a good handle on this injury. They're doing a very good job of disguising it in Pittsburgh, and I give them credit for that. But they have a pretty good group there of reporters, and I'm surprised they haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. But see now, okay, Amy Hudak just put Evgeny Malkin injured out, quote, longer term, quote.
Well, I thought it was a high ankle sprain, but
so he's going to be out for weeks. That's what we're going to take from that. So yeah, him out for weeks is going to cause a big problem for this team that already has a depth issue. So they're going to have to get great goaltending too. They're going to have to get scoring from other guys. I mean, it's not like they're not bereft of offense. Crosby can certainly make a lot of guys better on his line.
Right.
But this is
Bukestad. Bukestad was the other guy.
Yeah, Bukestad's a loss too, because he is a big physical presence. I'm not saying he's been ripping it up for them either.
No, but I mean, he's the guy who's the hinge. He can play the wing, but now if Malkin is out, he could move to center if they needed to. But if he's hurt, then he can't do that. So
yeah, they're going to be hurting in the center position, but they still score goals. They've got 8 goals on the season, like they do. So this is where Mike Sullivan will have to earn his money, because he's got a lot of detractors these days, and this is going to be a big test for him. We'll see how he does.
Now Philadelphia 1-0. I mean, it's one game that was over in
You're going to win every game, Mike.
There you go, 82-0, the perfect season. Tampa Bay is 1-1 through 3 games. Stamkos made some comments after they lost to Carolina. I think it was 4-3 in overtime.
Yeah.
That, and basically, reading the riot act to a team that had this President's Trophy, great season, comes out and said, we can't play sort of loosey-goosey like we did last year. And, we did in this game and it cost us.
Yep.
I mean, this again, Russ, I know that you thought that Cooper might have been in trouble last year.
I don't think he's in trouble.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I mean,
they still going to score goals. They're still going to win games, Mike. But he's in trouble. When Stevens, think about what has to happen for Stamkos to do this on a team this talented. Just think about that for a minute.
Yeah, and they do have a coach in the organization that I know for a fact has been in consideration for NHL jobs, and that's Benoit Gruel, their coach in Syracuse. So, but again, they signed Cooper to an extension, and he did win the President's Trophy last year. I think he's in a similar situation to Babcock, where if they struggle again in the playoffs, they lose in the first round, or if they don't at least get to, say, the conference final, then Cooper might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Now
we should mention Carolina.
Yeah, well, I was going there. So right now in the Metro, you've got the 3 top teams all undefeated, or excuse me, Washington's 2-0-1. Carolina's 3-0, which is a little surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rangers are 2-0. Start with Carolina. I know they're getting offense. Every Leaf fan noticed Jake Gardner scoring a goal. Okay, that's
a game-winning goal, Mike. Not just a goal; it's a game-winning goal.
That's not the problem for Jake Gardner, folks. He can score goals. He's good offensively. Just wait till he goes into his other end. Then he's going to be scoring goals for the other team.
Well, I mean, right now they have 11 goals for, 8 against. So things have come good for them out of the gate. They're not giving up too many goals. They're winning some close games, too. So right now, everything's going right. I got to advance down the road a little bit with this team and see. But right now, everything's gravy. Capitals, I expect this from the Capitals. The Capitals, to me, are going to just be the class of this division, be very consistent all year, and they don't need to always have the foot on the gas pedal 100% of the time. They know what it takes. They'll get it done. The Rangers have a very exciting offense. They do. The tic-tac-toe plays now that they can make on that top line. I've always told people Buchnevich has a really high skill level, but they never really had him with the right players. Not that you're going to always have him with a Panarin, but now that you have him with Panarin and Zibanejad, all of a sudden the ice is opened up for everybody, and you could really see what the skill is. Their defense has been good. All of a sudden, Adam Fox is getting a lot of praise. So, yes, people are finally starting to realize that he may not be a question mark, and their defense might be better than advertised. And if it is the way the Metro is, that's why I think the Rangers are a playoff team, because they have a good goalie tandem. That is the other thing that backs them up.
Now, I just heard this on the radio this morning. Obviously, you who wrote a book on the Rangers history know that there was a line called the bread line.
Yeah.
And since Panarin has been called the bread man, supposedly the nickname for this line with Zibanejad and Buchnevich is the bread and butter line.
Okay, at least they changed it a little.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's not like the kid line with the Leafs, where they named, like, who was Rocky Saganuk, Laurie Boschman and John Anderson back in the 70s. They named that the kid line when there was a kid line that won Stanley Cups. You don't do that.
Yeah, the bread line goes all the way back to the 20s.
Yes. Now in the East, in the Atlantic Division, the Leafs are 2-0-1. We'll talk about their game against Montreal in a minute, but let's stick with the 2 surprising ones here first. Detroit 2-0. That's fool's gold. I mean, I'm sorry. Great that they started out 2-0. They got a great performance out of Mantha. He scored 4 goals. They can't keep that up. They're not that good of a team. Buffalo, on the other hand, a lot of people were enthused here. I think, put the brakes on it, folks. Let's wait until we get 10, 15 games into the season and see where the Sabres are. A lot of enthusiasm about Ralph Kruger right now, Russ. They opened up a can of whoop ass on the Devils on Saturday, a 7-2 win. Their power play was really good. Victor Olofsson scored a couple goals. They got good goaltending out of Hutton. That happens all the time, then they're going to win a lot. But I don't know if that's going to happen all the time.
No, that's true. I want to go one thing back to the Rangers because I had to look it up because I wasn't 100%. Remember, when you name this thing like the bread and butter line, the bread line, 3 of them are Hall of Famers. Bun Cook was actually put in after he was dead posthumously in 95. That was the one I was unsure of, but Bill Cook and Frank Boucher are almost founding members of the Hockey Hall of Fame. So this line has a long way to go before I'll call them for that.
Sure.
And so now who are we talking about before that?
Sabres.
I don't love the Sabres. I don't care that they look tough. I like Kruger, but I'm not impressed. There's things going on there that remind me of the same old things that are going on there. So you can't convince me anything has really changed yet other than who they're playing and who their opponent is. I don't feel like their team has changed, Mike. I just don't.
No, I mean it's the same. Well, that's the observation that I've made for most of the exhibition schedule leading up is that they added VC, they added Johansson, they added Yoki Haru, who's playing pretty decent, but they brought back the same team and they just added to that already existing group. The guys like Hunwick and Pominville are gone, but essentially the rest of the team is the same. And it
doesn't help them that Alex Nylander looked okay playing for another team. It doesn't help them.
Well, he scored a goal, and Yoki Haru has played well. So I mean, if they both play well, I don't think there's going to be a complaint. But no, I mean, right now they have Olofsson playing. All the eggs are in one basket. They have Olofsson playing with Eichel and Reinhart.
I mean, I'm going to tell you this: the game against the Devils, right? I was watching some of it, and then I was watching highlights, and Mackenzie Blackwood looked like he had vision problems. That's how bad he played. He couldn't track the puck at all. So they scored 7 of their 10 goals in that game. I can't get excited about the Sabres. I'm going to tell you, Rochester could have beaten the Sabres that day with Mackenzie Blackwood the way he was playing.
Oh, the Devils, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the Leafs. They won their opener against Ottawa, but it was not a what I thought was a complete effort. They played pretty well in Columbus on Friday, and there are things here open to criticism. One, they play Freddie Anderson in the first of the back-to-backs on the road against Columbus, and then play Michael Hutchinson at home against Montreal, when a lot of people think it should be flip-flop, that you play your number one against the division rival, and you need the number one when your team is tired in the second of back-to-back games. But Babcock has been consistent with that. He always basically bank the points that you have in the first game with everybody.
He wants the gimmies, and then he'll try and steal the others.
Right, and it almost worked. And the thing is, a lot of people laid blame at the feet of Michael Hutchinson, but really I thought that was misplaced. Even Babcock said after the game, I thought that they hung him out to dry. The Leafs were up 4-1 against Montreal in the early third period, and they simply stopped skating. And Montreal was infused with energy, got a couple goals within a minute of each other. And then the brain cramp of brain cramps, Kasperi Kapanen, during a penalty kill, gets the stick broken by a Jeff Petrie shot, and his response was to throw the shaft at Jeff Petrie. And that led to Petrie getting a penalty shot, tying the game. Montreal eventually took the lead late in the third, and then Matthews scored a tying goal with about a minute left to go to at least earn a point. But there were signs there, Russ, that to my mind, they're all pointed at Babcock and his game management skills. They so far have been playing their top 3 lines heavily, and the fourth line less than 10 minutes. The defensive pairings, he's playing Muzzin and Barry Riley and Cece over 20 minutes and playing guys like Rasmus Sandin, the 19-year-old rookie, and Martin Marincin or Justin Hall, playing them less than 10. If you're going to play them, if they're good enough to make the team, then they should play 12 to 15 minutes. And if you can't play them that many minutes because you're exposing them, then they shouldn't be on the team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's losing his grip on this team, Babcock, but because the team is very talented offensively, he can get away with a lot of ills. I kind of wonder, when you say that, Pete, this is game 3 or game 2 we're talking about, and guys stop skating. To me, that's on the coach. You could start benching guys. You could do a lot of things to affect change, even in a game like that, if you feel like if they're not playing Mike Babcock hockey. You know what the problem is? I don't know what Mike Babcock hockey is anymore.
Well, the funny thing is, I know what Mike Babcock hockey is, but the problem is that this team is not capable of playing Mike Babcock hockey because he talks about playing heavy.
Yeah.
And this is not a heavy team. This is a skill team. This is a team like he had in Detroit where, they didn't take penalties. They weren't overly tough. They beat their opposition with skating and with skill. Well, and I'm not going down the Neanderthal road here because I got involved in some. I didn't even say anything on Twitter, and somebody carried on the conversation, and it just kept going on without me. But Don Cherry made some comments on Saturday, a point that I've been making for a while, and it's the fact that this is a pure skill team, and if teams start to get rough with them, which happened against Montreal, Weber crumpled Tavares in the first period. Marner was hit hard by Jeff Petrie. There was no pushback. The power play is not a pushback. It makes the other team pay. But if they're intent on slamming your star players and nobody responds, they're going to keep slamming them.
Yeah, you've got to have guys that are ready to spring into action. You don't have to have enforcers. But look, they're 2-0. We'll get off the subject, but I just don't like the fit that Babcock is right now with this team. I agree with you.
All right, we'll take some questions in the chat here. By the way, somebody mentioned, we didn't start with this during the pre-show, but we have to mention because it's music and we always mention it. The passing of Ginger Baker at age 80. I think you'd have to say one of the great rock drummers and one of the great influencers of other rock
influencers. I don't know if I ever saw great rock drumming out of him. But I say influencer.
Yeah, I'll send you something because like I've always been into like that sort of early mid invasion, and then it goes into Cream. Where he was in with the Graham Bond organization, then with Cream, then with Blind Faith, and the modern drum solo comes from Ginger Baker.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's where I'll go with the influencer part because.
But he was basically.
I've heard the music, but I've not seen enough of him to be able to tell you definitively how great he was or not. But certainly a massive name in the industry.
Yeah, and 80 years.
I know the music.
Yeah, we won't get into this debate today because there's enough to talk about. But Dean Youngblood in the chat says just behind Moon and Bonham. I love Keith Moon. I really do. Keith Moon has to be one of the most unorthodox drummers in the history of rock and roll because he's not playing. He's not keeping time. He's I always refer to the Who as 4 lead musicians.
Yeah.
Lead vocal, Daltrey, lead guitar, Townsend, lead bass in Entwistle, and lead drums in Moon. They weren't playing like the typical rhythm section.
He was like the Eddie Van Halen of drums.
Yeah, they were all over the place. And I love Bonham, but sometimes I think Bonham is sort of a plodder.
He was a guy who pounded the drums.
Yeah.
And so I like that and appreciate it for that. But to be honest, I would rather have the super clean and fast snare drum solo that maybe like a Carl Palmer will do, or even Buddy Rich or like that, over the smasher. And I felt like Bonham had his place. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I felt like you're right. I felt like that was his thing.
And Dean, I know you just said Moon plays on intuition. Anybody wants an idea of how great Keith Moon was? Listen to The Real Me, the song from Quadra Moon, and how he fills. And it's a blizzard of drums. It's
a great song. I love the beats. Like, you can't beat it. It's just, but I think you're right. I can only imagine with some of these studio albums that they probably did like 50 takes with him and just decided to use the best one, and probably some of the time it was the last one.
Right. Okay. In the chat questions, we'll take a few questions here before we end the show. Bardicus asks, what do you think about the Ducks' success so far? Sustainable? I'd be surprised. I really would be.
I think they can hang in there for a while because that's how much I've always thought about John Gibson. Eck, of course, was a John Gibson hater. Wait, is that not true?
No, it's true.
It's true. But I think the last year and a half, he is showing his worth. And I think they have some young talent. If Getzlaff could get hot, they could hang there for a while, especially while some of these teams are having problems. And maybe like a Winnipeg may not be a playoff team now. So Anaheim might be able to hang in there for a while.
I mean, Dallas Eakins, new coach, new excitement. He brings up a bunch of young guys like Steele and Jones and Lundstrom. I mean, anything's possible. I'd be surprised. I really would be. Toronto Greenhouse asks, so do the Jets dump Paul Maurice, start dealing assets, and rebuild?
No, they're not going to rebuild, but they might have to dump Paul Maurice at some point. Like I said, if he goes 1-6 or something, they're not going to care that the defense is out. They're going to be like, he needs to overcome this. He will be in the hot seat. And I can see him. I didn't think before the season began he could be the first coach fired, but there's a possibility of that.
Okay. Lance Norman asks, if Larkin and Mantha break out, what does Yzerman look good for not trading Mantha, or does he look bad for possibly trying to move him? Does Yzerman have push plans forward by moving out bad pieces? Okay, let's take that first. Yes. I think the work that Yzerman has in front of him is to move out Abdelkader, Helm, some of the rental Luke Glendening, some of the rental defensemen, and Mike Green and Erickson and Daly, who got hurt over the weekend, and apparently they traded for. This is how depth-wise, Russ. They don't want to bring up Sider, so they traded for Alex Baega.
Yeah.
So
it's a nice story. Don't get me wrong, but
Right, but you see the developmental plan here. They sent Rasmussen down to Grand Rapids. They sent Zadina down. They sent Svechnikov down. They sent Sider down. So they're going back to overcooking their prospects and letting them mature down in the AHL, which is a good way to do. But also, you look at the team right now, and unless you get 4-goal performances from Mantha, you're not winning. I think Dylan Larkin's a really good young player. I like Mantha, and I think they were smart not to trade him. But I wouldn't be so sure that just because of a 4-goal game, they don't possibly address later on in the season trading him, because will they be good when in the next 3 or 4 years?
You don't trade him.
Yeah, I mean unless you get a comparable return in an area where you need it. And I think defensively, if they could get Ristolainen for Mantha, I think that Yzerman would do that. Maybe
no, I don't think you would. I don't think you could afford to do it. I think you need to hold on to this scoring, because Rasmussen is a question mark now as to what he might be able to do at the NHL level. So they're going to over-marinate him a bit. But with that big frame and size, if he can't score down low, you've wasted a pick, because then he's just going to be like a third-line okay kind of guy. And then Zadina needs another year in the AHL. He needs to score like 50, 60 points in the AHL. And if he can't, then there'll start to be a little bit questions about him. So then you need Larkin and Mantha, because you don't have enough goal scoring in your system. You just don't.
There was one more question here. Let's see. Terry GG&G. How do you think the new rule changes have been to the season so far, good or bad? Well, I heard something about the face-off
Yeah.
The new face-off rules, where like apparently like Montreal took really big advantage of it against the Leafs on Saturday. I didn't notice it until in game, but they won draws in the Leafs defensive zone. The thing is that it's simply the Leafs have to be better on face-offs. And
it's more than that though now. It is. And it'd be nice.
That explanation is overly simplistic, but I mean, and like if you have a right-handed face-off guy, and you have a guy like say Tavares, who's about a 50% guy. He's good. He's not great on face-offs, but he
wins them though. He
does. But I mean, sometimes like if it's the wrong hand and he's pulling it back towards his own net. I mean, that's a disadvantage. So, I mean, you have to have the guys who are going to be out there all the time winning faceoffs at key times. And it does help when you have a specialist guy, a guy out there like Spezza, who on a fourth line unit, he wins 57% of the draws. So, I mean, I think that should be a factor with some of these teams about getting veteran guys in there who can win faceoffs. But I mean, I don't know how it's going to keep going throughout the year.
Well, as an example, Tavares has won 65 faceoffs already. He's really good. He's 53.8 for a star player. That's really good. Yanni Gourde has only had like 15 faceoffs, but he's 65%. You're going to see more of these guys get split up because of the lefty-righty thing. Guys who could play center and wing. I did talk about it, if you remember, a couple days ago. Zibanejad right now is at 64%. JT Miller is at 64%. Now, remember, he is a guy that plays center and wing.
Right.
All those center wing guys now are way more valuable than they were before. Wenberg is 64% because even if you play him on the wing, he still knows how to play center. So teams are now, and this is the reason why I said that Hedl got sent down, because they want him to work on faceoffs, even if he's not going to be a center, simply because now there's more opportunities. Because you see, the coach gets to pick which side of the ice, and it does matter if you're a righty or a lefty. Roslovic's at 62%. I'm trying to get the non-centers in there. Lars Eller is at 60%. You could see where all of a sudden these other guys now who aren't full-time centers, Radek Faska, 57.9.
Right.
Teams know what to do with that, and I think Babcock's getting schooled in that, if you ask me.
Well, and the funny thing is that Babcock has guys who have played center on his top two lines, not playing center. Nylander was a center. Played in the American Hockey League, played it in Sweden, has played it at times in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So he's taken some draws. And last year they had Matthews taking draws on the left side and Nylander taking draws on the other side. And Marner was a center in junior. So, I mean, he's not
65%, Mike. You're covered. Don't worry.
Yeah, but he's never on the ice. So what the hell, Matt? Does it matter?
He's won 20 out of 33, Mike. So he hasn't been on the ice.
Great.
That's proof of it.
Yes, no, I'm talking about minutes. He's been out. I think he's averaging less than 10 minutes on the ice.
But he's getting a good 10 minutes, Mike. Spence is never going to see the ice.
Yeah, there you go. He's playing tonight, actually, Russ.
Okay.
All right, good show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. We don't know what time right now, but it was assuming
later in the day,
late in the afternoon. So after I have my continental breakfast and my
I've got like a yearly physical, and so there's other things going on. So yeah.
So, all right. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.